Hey folks, Coach Patrick here, Endurance Nation. Welcome back to another coach video. This week I'm going to talk to you a little bit about your last month to Ironman Hawaii. I know this is a small subset of people out there in the world, right? Only 2,000-ish competitors get to be there, but it's useful for everyone to think about their race through the same lens as Hawaii. So I'm going to dial that in for you guys and give you perspective on what's important over the last month of your training. Now, before I begin, I have to, let you guys know Endurance Nation is the world's largest and fastest online triathlon team. We are partners with Rev3 Triathlon and Trisports.com. We have over 40 different sponsors. You'll find the team at almost every single race you go to, whether it's running or cycling or swimming or triathlon. Be sure to say hi to people you see in the Endurance Nation kit and symbol. They're super friendly, and we'd love to have you join us. You can come and create your own free trial online at endurancenation.us/join. So, Hawaii. What is Hawaii? Well, Hawaii is something that is so different for people to experience because on paper it just looks so ordinary. It's a swim, it's a not that hilly of a bike course, and then it's a run. I mean, what could be so hard about it? The difference being that once you get there and you actually are on the ground and experiencing it, you realize the degree to which difficulty has increased without any of the ostensible warning signs that would tell you things are going to be hard. For example, if you saw a bike course that had 10,000 feet of elevation gain or 15,000 feet or something from the Tour de France, something in your head would trigger and you'd be like, that's a tough bike course, I better watch out. But when you look at your bike course and then look at the Hawaii bike course, you match them up online, you say, that's not so bad. I think I'll be okay. Well, I've raced there 7 times myself. I've been super fortunate. And I have learned that racing in Hawaii takes a unique set of skills and preparation, which is what I'm going to give to you today. So you've entered the final month to race, and as such, panic is high, right? The race that was far away is now right around the corner. Some of you qualified last year and have had plenty of time to think about it. Others of you just found out in the last couple of weeks that you're going there again. And so first and foremost, the number one thing you need to do is figure out sort of what your bigger picture objectives are on race day. If you just qualified this season, unless you qualified before June, it's very hard to build new fitness and go faster than you already are. So if you qualified this year, your goal is really how well can I race at the level I've already raced this year? You're sustaining fitness, you're changing your strategy according to some of the tips I'll give you now, and hopefully be just as fast on the island as you were wherever you qualified. For those of you who've had a full year or more than 12 weeks to prepare for this race itself specifically, you have an opportunity to go faster. But as any race on the Big Island, it depends greatly upon the weather and the conditions and how you execute. And so it's very important that you've made that decision early and you know how you want to lay it all out. Okay? Because I hate to see people who just qualify show up and think they're going to go all out. The race is tough. It's World Championships for a reason, not just because it's in this remote location, because it's hard. The winds, the heat, the combination of the two, the competition, it's brutal out there. And if you're not prepared, you're going to really, really suffer. So let me jump over here to my outline so I make sure I don't miss a thing so you guys are ready for this race. So number one, final 4 weeks of training. The most important thing you can focus on is your nutrition execution. It's going to be hot on the Big Island. It's going to be humid and it's going to be hot. And there's 2 different types of heat on the island, okay? There's heat from the sun, and then there's radiant heat off of the lava. Both are super tricky, and both will combine to put some serious pressure you on race day. And so what happens with the heat, you'll notice that the minute you get off the plane and start walking on the island, it's oppressive. You have to adapt. Hopefully you have more than 3 days to kind of get acclimated to the conditions and at least be able to breathe and sweat normally. Unlike you would normally do if you were at home, all of a sudden there you're twice as hot, working twice as hard for the same effort. Body has to adapt. So that's why driving and getting there early is super, super important. But from a nutrition perspective, on a normal bike ride, let's say you drink a bottle and a half an hour of fluids. That's great. But the conditions, what they will be in Hawaii, say they're going to be 85 with some winds and some humidity, you might need to drink 2 bottles or 2.5 bottles an hour. So you've got to sit down, do the math on that fluid plan, and start training it now. Like literally load up your bike with bottles. My Kona bike setup has an aero bottle on the front. I've got 3 bottles behind my seat. So it's 4 bottles. And then I've got 2 bottles in my pockets. So I've got 6 bottles. I drink a bottle every 20 minutes for the first hour. And then I drink a bottle every 30 minutes thereafter. So that gets me through about 2.5 hours of exercise, and then I can stop at a convenience store and load up and go again. So in a 5-hour ride, I only have to stop once, but I'm carrying a lot of weight, which I sort of figure is resistance training. But the point being, I'm training my system to handle the fluids. Of course, now in the fall, it would mean stopping quite more often to pee, but it's going to set me up for success on race day, because when it gets hot and you realize it's hot out there, you can't just simply start throwing down extra fluids and expect your body to be able to process all of it under your normal training or racing load, which is why we practice it. In addition to the fluids, there's also the food. So the fluids will help you manage the calories because you're going to be taking more in with the sports drink. But you've also got to make sure your food strategy is on point. It's going to be hot out there, and if you're planning on things that are covered in chocolate or easily melt, you're going to be sorely disappointed with your nutritional choices on race day, as it all turns into one giant ball of goop. So I recommend things that are wrapped, or if not wrapped, you can wrap them in rice paper, and inside our Endurance Nation power tip. Or you can make sure that you're all liquid. Whatever your plan is, know what your plan is and start practicing it now. In addition to the bike, you also want to focus on the run. And even though you might run around your neighborhood and run 6, 8 miles and never take a drink of anything and you're fine, because you're preparing for Kona, you need to wear your fuel belt, and you need to have half of one of those 8-ounce bottles, so 4 ounces, half of one of those bottles every mile. So every mile the watch beeps, stop the watch, drink 4 ounces, put the bottle away, start the watch, run another mile, and just get really good at drinking 4 ounces every mile. Again, that's a competency. It's a skill for race day that's going to set you apart from the competition. The ability to eat and drink despite the conditions and despite the effort that you're putting out there. Super duper important. And that's something you can absolutely do right now. So get to work, retrofit that bike and be ready. Speaking of retrofitting things, it's time to talk a little bit about shopping, right? Because there's probably some things that you need. And I'm not talking about, carbon screws for your aero bars so that they're, 0.7 grams lighter than other screws. I mean, a little more bigger picture wins for you that hopefully will help you set up to be a little more aero and functional and fast on race day. So first and foremost, I mentioned that aero bottle. It's a given in Hawaii. You need a bottle between the bars that you can drink out of while in the bars. And this is because in Hawaii, the winds gust down off of the mountain ridge, off of the volcano essentially, because it's so hot on the lava and it's so cool in the water. You get this dynamic shift. Since you're on the leeward side, the wind comes over. Further you get to Hawaii, as you come around as you come around the island, the stronger those winds get. But it's not a wind like you have in your town where you're like, oh, it's windy today, and you can see all the flags pointing out. The wind in Hawaii is such that it bursts, it's gusts. It's like someone comes along and just kind of flicks your front wheel every once in a while, and your bike goes all over the road. And when you're riding and you look up the road, you'll see people doing something crazy up there, and you're saying, what's happening? And right there is a wind tunnel, and when you get to that point, you're also going to feel that same blast of wind. So having the aero bottle between your bars means that you can eat and drink and you don't have to sit up. You can just drink when you need to, which is critical, because if your bottle requires you to move your hand around, I've had races out there where I'm riding and I'm like, okay, I need to get that bottle off the back. Here we go. I take my hand off the bottle and the gust of wind comes and I got to put my hand back. I'm like, okay, let's try that again. And the gust of wind comes. The net is I've gone like 20 minutes without a drink because every time I take my hand off the bars, the wind comes and it moves my bike. So you need to have an aero bottle up front. We prefer the Speedfill A2, super simple, what doesn't spill. Right there, it's got Garmin computer mounts, everything you need. You can easily refill it. Okay, so you definitely want that aero bottle mount. It makes a huge difference in Hawaii, not just for handling the winds on the way out, which are gusty, but handling the sort of steady headwind that builds behind you, tailwind on the way out, but headwind on the way back, that is going to be in your face as you're coming back into town. And being able to stay aero and drink is critical. It's going to give you a few more miles per hour in that competition. Okay. People ask a lot about aero helmets in Hawaii. Like, it's so hot. Should I or should I not wear an aero helmet? My recommendation to you is that you wear whatever helmet is the most aero you can wear, with the caveat that you need to have a method of keeping yourself cool. Very few people ride so hard that their body will overheat inside their bicycle helmet. Most of us have wind on our body, a sweat evaporating, which cools us down. That keeps our core body temperature down despite what's happening to our skull. That said, having an extra bottle gauge on your bike for a bottle of water, super helpful, especially when you're hitting those hills, because that's where you feel the heat. When you slow down on the hills on the way back with a slight headwind in you, and all of a sudden, instead of going 20 miles an hour, you're going 8 miles an hour, you feel the radiant heat of the earth. And you can see this on a data file. People's temperatures will spike every time that they slow down. So speed drops, temperature goes up. And at that time, you're going to want to cover yourself. Cover your arm coolers with water, cover your body, your back, maybe even put some on the back of your neck. Whatever you can do to keep that temperature down, avoid accumulating too much heat. That's important. So I recommend an aero helmet because you want to be fast, okay? But there's plenty of smaller, more functional aero helmets that don't require the same cost as bigger helmets that are like totally sealed up. Okay, so you don't have to go out and spend $650 on a helmet just to race in Hawaii. Any helmet will do. The helmet is not going to win the bike, but the more aero you can get, as long as you make a promise to yourself to stay cool, you should be all right. Okay. Finally, race wheels. In Hawaii, everyone knows that you can't ride a disc in the back. It's just too dangerous. But you can go crazy with whatever wheel setup that you want. In general, we recommend that you get as aero as you possibly can. So this means deep rims. I personally ride like 808s, Zip 808s front and back with my Power Tap wheel in the back. I'm a bigger guy and I've ridden on the island a couple of times. I'm used to the winds. I know sort of how it feels and where I'm at. For first timers, you likely will want to go with a less deep of a rim on the front, which is where the jumpiness comes from the wind, right? Like if it hits your back wheel, it doesn't matter, but the front one's where you steer, and if the wind catches that, it can kind of freak you out. Maybe having a slightly shallower front wheel. So some people will go like 404 front, 808 rear. Whatever you're comfortable with, you will know. It's nice to have options when you're on the big island, but if you have to commit, I would go with some level of a deep rim. At a minimum, I'd go like 404s. I don't know what that translates to in other wheel sets, but you can do the math on your own end. But aero wheels do make a difference in Hawaii, and it's certainly worthwhile in terms of checking those out. In addition to the wheels, you definitely want to make sure you've got new tires on there. Put them on about 2 weeks out. We recommend wider tires at 25 millimeters. Make sure they fit your bike. You need a lower tire pressure to run those. It's just a much faster setup and a slightly lower tire pressure. For me, I'm 185 pounds. I would ride 25 millimeter tires, kind of in the 90 to 100 PSI range. And as such, it's nice because you can max inflate those guys to 140 if you wanted to. But you can put them at your race PSI and leave them on the pier when you're out there swimming, even though the tires will increase with the heat from sitting on the pavement, despite the green turf on top. They're not anywhere near in danger of blowing. Now, if you pump your tire up to like 130 PSI, and it can only go to 140 and you leave it on the pier, that thing's probably going to blow. But running wider tires at lower PSI does seem to help offset that potential risk of having a tire pop while you're out there swimming. Okay, so what are some other gear you need while you've got your shopping cart open on your computer? Well, we definitely recommend that you have arm coolers. These look just like arm warmers. You just pull them on over your arms, typically white. DeSoto makes a couple great pairs. They're usually slightly transparent, and the idea essentially is that you get those wet with water on the bike, and because it retains the moisture on your skin, the wind from the bike hitting the arm that's wet will now stay cooler because you're there, and it works fantastically on the bike. It also does a great job of keeping the sun off of your arms. If you've got a full sleeve top, like a top with short sleeves like that, that's fantastic. That'll also help keep the sun off your back. The sun is by far the worst enemy in terms of daily discomfort. You feel the sun beating down on you all the time. And later on, you'll definitely feel the after effects as you just have sunburn numbers. Typically, the right side of your body gets way worse burn from the run than any other part of your body. There's also right side coming back on the bike and then right side on the run as well. So something for you to think about in terms of taking care of yourself. Arm coolers make a difference. They may not really work for you on the run. In fact, many people sort of feel sticky because you're not going fast enough. You can always ditch them, they just roll right off. Okay, super, super easy. We do recommend something like a trucker hat. You want something that's not sitting, like not smothering your hat, but goes over your head to block the sun. Trucker hats are kind of like a visor with a roof, like a dome, because that's also not on your head. Great for holding ice and keeping the sun off your face, which makes a big difference, I find, as you go. And then finally, I would be remiss if I didn't recommend a Race Saver bag. I've got one right here. You're gonna want your Race Saver bag from Mile 18. It's awesome because when you're out there racing on the Big Island, you can have the bag on your hand just like this. You can put the ice in it from the aid stations. It closes right up. You've got ice in your hand. You can take it, you can tuck it inside your hand so it stays there. Most importantly, when you're in an aid station and you put that ice in the bag, you drop the ice in there and it closes down. You can still eat and drink as you need to because you have your ice. You're not going to lose it. When you leave the aid station, you can put this under your hat, shirt, whatever you need. You can always pour the water out of it, keep the ice, eat the ice if you want to, whatever you want. It makes a huge difference out there on the Big Island. So check that out at mile18inc.com. All right, so moving on. Heat acclimation. This is another question I get a lot. I got to get ready for the heat. What can I do? Well, important constraint to note, you really can't uh, fake the heat and have it work for longer than 2 weeks. So if you're thinking about heat acclimation, take a look at your travel schedule. If you're going to be there for more than 6 or 7 days on the Big Island, I'm not worried about heat acclimation for you. You'll have time on the island. You can do a couple key workouts and absorb them. You'll be fine. If you're getting to the Big Island less than 7 days before race day, so after Saturday before race day, because the race day is on Saturday, then you're going to need to do some heat acclimation stuff. And that means essentially, I don't mean like cranking up the thermostat in your house, but what I do mean is doing workouts indoors on the bike and the run to simulate the heat conditions you'll be feeling. So turn off the fans, get on the treadmill at the gym or the treadmill at home, the bike train at the gym or home for those key sessions. What I don't want you to do is to go out and like ride your bike outside, but bundle up with like 16 layers. Because if you stop and start again, all that sweat on your body is going to make you really cold and could potentially lead to illness. Not to mention, it's just uncomfortable riding with all of that stuff on your body. So just go do your long rides as you do. If you can find the warmer part of the day, that's great. Do the nutrition plan as you're planning for a race day, but do the critical midweek sessions, shorter runs, shorter bikes, etc., indoors in that more crucible-like setting for you. That will be helpful. In addition, if you have a sauna at your gym or the Y, the next town over from me has a sauna, you can go swim and then make sure you're hydrated, but sit in the sauna for a while and just get used to being in the heat and handling the heat. When I'm on the Big Island, I don't drive around with air conditioning on. I just leave it normal, get used to just being in sort of the regular temperatures, and I try and avoid air conditioning in my condo or hotel room, if at all possible, unless my family is just suffering as well. Midday workouts make a difference on the Big Island. If you're there early enough, like for those of you who are attending Endurance Nation's Kona Camp, your basically race week prep, we show up on the Friday before the race, so we're 10 days out. And as such, we have the opportunity to do the open water swim on Saturday. We'll do a 3-hour bike on Saturday. So we're going to get a big bike in the heat of the day and really start kickstarting your system to acclimate to the conditions. And so those midday workouts make a difference. So I do recommend maintaining that throughout the session. You can swim in the morning, but doing a short bike or short run when you're on the Big Island, sort of closer to the middle of the day, will make a difference. Obviously, as long as it works with your family or whatever other sort of time constraints that you have, okay? So key workouts. This is the last segment of this coach video for you guys heading into Kona. The key workouts you need to think about. When I think about this section, what comes to mind is that many of you have raced this year. So you've already done a huge block of training. Then you did your biggest workout of the year in your race. And now you're thinking about, how do I redo all of that to be ready again? And you have to remember that you're already sort of 2/3 of the way there. You did all the work. You were successful enough to have qualified. And here you are again building up. So we don't need to go through and reiterate the same last 6, 8, 10 weeks all over again to do it, because you're not at the same point when you started those 10 weeks the first time. So instead, I want you to think about some key sessions. Of course, we'll want volume, and our training plans inside Endurance Nation have that, and perhaps you with your own training plan will have that as well. But key sessions that we think are important. Number one, you simply can't swim enough. Open water swimming in the ocean with the swells that are down there in Kailua Bay is super challenging. And so just getting comfortable in the water and just used to swimming for a long time is helpful. So any extra time during this final month when you can swim, we strongly recommend it. If it's open water, that's a bonus, but I'll take any type of swimming whatsoever. You can make your swim workouts harder by using something like a pull buoy and then putting ankle bands, elastic bands around your ankles, so you're just pulling with your arms. That's a way to sort of add more swimming, but really lock it down to your upper body, allow you to continue doing the work, run and cycling without impact from those additional yardage swimming. Okay. Number two, the next key workout is swimming then biking. This is one of my favorite sessions. You go do a long swim. For me, it'll be like a 2-mile open water swim if possible. I don't live that far from the ocean. 2-mile open water swim, and then within 15 or 20 minutes, I'm on the bike and I'll do 56 miles, about half race distance. I'll do that like a half Ironman. I'll do that at half Ironman effort. So much harder than I plan on going on race day, but really putting my system under stress getting out of the water, which highlights the need for nutrition on the bike, importance of pacing. Even though I'm staying at a high level of effort, I want to pace myself on the hills and the terrain to be safe and manage my heart rate across that. So it really kind of raises the bar for me. I don't think people really appreciate the cost of swimming and then biking. And Hawaii is such that the swim is so much more challenging than an average swim. And you get right out there on the bike that you need to be ready to go to ride well. So definitely looking at that type of workout for you. That's one thing you can easily do on a Saturday. I do mine on Fridays, whenever works for you. And then finally, running in the heat. Running in the heat just takes a lot of attention to detail, managing your heart rate, managing your nutrition, trying to stay cool. So if it's still warm at certain times of day near you, then I encourage you to get out there and run in the hottest part of your day as possible. If not, when you get to the Big Island, do some short runs in the heat to get used to it. But definitely get used to just sort of running in the heat and what that feels like. What happens to your shoes? What happens to your sweat? Like, what does your body start to break down? At what point in time you start to notice the heart rate really kind of pick up and get out of control? All of those things come into play, and they're super important for you to be on top of. And if you can get on top of that stuff now in training, it's going to correlate to a better race day experience because you're going to know those early warning signs when they pop up. I'll be back with another video on how to actually execute well on the Kona course, but for now, use these final 4 weeks to focus in on these critical elements. Number one, get that nutrition plan rocking and locked in so you're practicing it all out for the Big Island. You got to buy all that stuff and use it, so let's get that done now. Second, hit the online store here, maybe trisports.com. Pick up that Aero bottle. Make sure you've got a solid helmet you can ride in, got arm coolers, you're all set with bottles. You have everything you need to be cool and effective and fast on race day. And then finally, take a look at your travel plans and map out any heat acclimation work you need to take into account, whether it's before you leave for those of you going less than 7 days before the race, or if you're going to be able to handle on the Big Island like those of you who are able and fortunate enough to travel to the Big Island early. Racing in Hawaii will be challenging no matter what your fitness level is. You can see it on the faces of the competitors from past race videos, but it can still be a good experience if you remain in charge of the big details that are going to move the needle for you on race day. Best of luck to you in your final weeks of training. I look forward to seeing you guys on the Big Island and cheering you guys on as you cross that finish line. See ya.